Okay, hello, and welcome to today's buyer process. We're not going to go through, um, we're not going to go through the paperwork, like the documents, like how to talk to your client about working with real estate agent or how to go through a buyer consult. We're going to talk about the process that goes along with the steps for the buyer consult. And I am Karin Head and Nikki Rottweiler, the lady with multiple names. And we're going to just bounce back and forth. Lauren is here, and this class was really to make sure she knows the process, even though she does. We're going to, reinforce what she needs to know today. So let's get started. Step one, you have a client. Now it's time to do the buyer consult. Where's our buyer consult sheet? We have a buyer consult sheet somewhere. Yes. You can have your own buyer consult sheet. This is ours, just to remind us of all the things that we need, because sometimes you can start talking to somebody and miss critical pieces, right?
Yeah.
So I do it a little differently than Nikki, and every agent will do it a little bit differently. But one of the things we do is cover all the basics first. Okay, let's go ahead and gather all the information. Who's going to be purchasing the house, contact information, get all of that taken care of up front. And then I generally say, tell me what's going on, because I want to know who, what, when, where, why, and what their motivation is and what their timeline is. And Nikki, you talk about your step one process.
I do the same thing, and a lot of times I find this happens on the phone a lot. I think we think of a normal buyer consult as in person, but how many times have you called a lead or someone that's interested in buying a house and they start telling you what's going on? So right. Always, even wherever you are, have your piece of paper ready to write down notes, because you might not always have this in front of you. But same with Karin. Tell me what's going on. I want to know the whole situation, and people do want to tell you what's going on. So once we get to that information and tell me what's going on, then I want to know, like, okay, we're looking for a house, the must-haves, and what's the number one? Like Karin was saying earlier, we were talking about it. Is it school district? Is that the number one thing? You want to be in this school district? Is it the house I'm in now doesn't have a garage. I have to have a garage. I need to know, what are your must-haves?
What are the deal breakers, really?
Yeah, and what are the deal breakers? What are I'm working with a client now that must have a garage and must not be on a busy street, because those are the two things she's dealing with now. And so if she's going to move, those are her two must-haves. If she's going to move, I must have a garage and I must not be on a busy street. That's the deal breaker.
But let's say she has kids, and kids supersede everything because she has to have this school. So you don't even bother looking outside that school district if the schools are tightening like they are in Forsyth County, where you can't go to Reagan High School now, even if your kids went there. So you have to buy into the Reagan School District or move. I mean, I've got friends doing that now.
So what's the most important? If it's school district, then it's school district, right? So we look at school district, and everything else
is secondary
to that. So find out what's the most important to your client and what's the deal breaker. So, obviously school district, a deal breaker would be not in the school district. So that's kind of what I want to find out. And then also at that point, that's when I start talking to them about things they think are deal breakers, but aren't. Like, oh, I need a fenced in backyard. Okay. That's something that's not a deal breaker, because if we find the perfect house, you can add a fence. We can, especially in this market, ask for a seller concession, but there's things that we can
work on it. We can raise the price of the loan and add that in. So there are different ways to make that happen.
Yeah. And kind of setting, right then what actually is a deal breaker and what's not.
But if it has to be in a certain school district or a certain neighborhood, that's number one. So keep that in mind. So we go through the buyer consult, and let's say I need all of this. I need it in the Reagan School District, and I only have $200,000. And you go, okay, well, you're going to be living in, you're going to be doing some updates, right?
Yeah. And so sometimes I've had clients do that before too. And and a lot of times if I'm in person with them, I have my laptop out, and that's when I'll pull out my laptop and go, let's just see what's available and what's closed in the last few months with that criteria.
And so you can show them.
So I can show them. It's not
Nikki, it's not Karen, it's not Lauren, it's not Ashley, it's not Alexa. It is what is available.
So I think a lot of us want to be, oh yes, agreeable with the clients, but it's also about setting them up for the right expectations.
Expectations set correctly. Mm-hmm. That is everything. Okay, so step 1, we know what they're looking for. And another good process point to ask is, how much cash do they have if they're looking at older homes, right? Do you have the money to take care of the repairs on an older home? Because oftentimes people are spending all their money to get into a house, and then they don't have any cash to fix things in their house poor, right? But they can sell things off. They can buy a cheaper car, they can Uber, they can do some things to earn some additional income. But if they get into a house that needs a new roof and new systems, and we've seen this before where people just have to have this house and they're cash poor, and then somebody loses a job, then what? They're underwater.
Or their hot water heater bursts.
Or their hot yeah, and that's to the tune of $5,400.
Yeah.
And 60 plus gallons worth of water in your basement.
But if you don't, so that's the thing when buying a house too. If they don't have a lot of cash, we're going to be looking for a house where the systems are new.
Yes. If they're poor in their bank account and they don't have that cash, don't sell them an old house that needs a lot of work. That's where a consultation becomes, let's do the smart thing, not do just what you want to do, but what's smart for your future. Because they can always take that house and upgrade later, especially when rates come down and prices regulate a little bit better. Okay, what are we missing here, Nikki? Lifestyle, how far is it from their house? Sometimes they're not thinking about how far things are from their house, or whether they like to ride bikes. You have a lot of high net worth people that like to ride bikes. They want to be close to the greenways, or they might want to be close to shopping or dining. Some folks might like to be closer to the hospitals because they want the proximity to get to the emergency room if they need it, or if they have an underlying medical condition, they need to be closer. So all those things, if you let people talk, they will tell you why they need to do something. And I think that's the critical piece, is we're not there to talk to them. We're there to listen. We're talking a lot right now, but usually we listen. Okay. Step 2, you know what they're looking for and you're sitting there with your laptop. Then what?
The first thing I do is, I set them up on a search.
Plug in everything.
Set them up on a search so they can get.
So let me just stop you. Let's say you plug in everything they want and you come up with 0 results. There's nothing active. Then what?
So I don't plug in everything they want, and I tell them that I don't, because first of all, there's a lot of things like we can't put in, right? Like we can't, like I had a client be like, I don't want any carpet in the house. Okay, well, I can't plug that into the search. There's not a spot that says no carpet in the house. So, and I tell them we don't want to miss out on things by putting too many specific details. We want, when I do the search, if it's a minimum of 3 bedrooms, 3 plus bedrooms, minimum of 2 bathrooms, price, even with their price, I do a little bit below and a little bit over, and I do over, and I tell them because we're back to negotiating prices again. So I'm going to go over, before I wouldn't go over, because if their budget was $300,000, chances are they needed $325,000 to get that house. Now, if their budget's $300,000, I'm going to put up to $325,000 because now we can negotiate that down.
Or maybe it comes down, or
if prices drop, and if it's been on the market a month, we don't mind making an offer for
we assume it's overpriced at that point.
So set up the search so they can see, and I do a very broad search for them. Better to be broad than narrow, because
Better to have some options.
Because there's still not a ton of homes on the market right now. The inventory is still not great. So I want them to see everything that might possibly work for them. And then let them,
Yeah. So step one, you have the buyer consult and you sign all the paperwork. We don't show a single house without buyer agency and working with real estate agent. Let me say that again. We don't show a single house without working with real estate and buyer agency. We are not the beck and call girl. I know some people are, but that's not us. So step one, you're done with that. Step two, you're taking a look at properties and scheduling things. You're setting them up on the search. You're advising them along the way, like call them. Hey, I'm setting up your search. It looks like if I put in all your criteria, we come up with 0 results. So I'm going to back off of these things. And then they go, oh, no, I don't have the money for a fence, $5,000 for a fence. A fence is super important. And you say, okay, well, is fence a criteria, Nikki? I don't even know. It's not even a criteria. So that becomes,
I think it is. It is a criteria, but it's a fine line because there's partially fenced. Yeah. Some people put fenced when there's only a partial fence up. So I wouldn't even put in that criteria because
you need to look it up.
You need to see the house. You need to see.
Every agent's description of fence is different.
Their idea. Yeah. So even though it is a criteria in the MLS, it
could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yeah. It could be their fence, the neighbor's fence.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the houses I actually had, that they built the neighbor's storage shed was right on the property line. And like part of the fence was part of the neighbor's storage shed and stuff. Yeah. It was like,
that's always fun.
Yeah.
And encroachments are always a fun time. I'll let the attorneys handle that.
So
good.
And with that, so you've done the buyer consult, you set them up on a search, sending them right then at the buyer consult, I send them the list of our preferred lenders. And I send them that and I tell them to call them right away.
And even if they want to use their own lender, we're great with that as long as they're local and they can get it done. Or if they're out of town, it's like somebody personally they know that we can call. It's not like some Wells Fargo. I hate Wells Fargo. I hate Bank of America. Bank with both. So they just are not fun to work with from a perspective of a mortgage. And I think, was it Bank of America or Wells Fargo got completely out of mortgages? I think Wells Fargo did, with the exception of their high net worth individuals that they do through their.
At the buyer consult, I stress the importance of using a local lender.
Local lenders.
The local lenders we use, I have no problem calling them Sunday at 9:00 at night and getting an answer.
And we need it.
And we need it.
They need to work on the weekends. Some don't work on the weekends, right?
Yeah, you try to call after 5:00 on Friday, you're not getting a hold of anybody. I personally talked to our local lenders one time at 10:30 on a Sunday night. So, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to call for no reason. If I'm calling at 10:30 on a Sunday night, there is an emergency that needs to happen. But there's a power in having a local lender that's willing to do that.
All right. And so now we have found some houses to go look at. Then what? We found 10 houses.
So everybody does it different. I tell my clients to drive by them.
Drive by them. See the neighborhood. Check it out before we go see them. And let's say there's some hot properties in there. Then what? Let's say I love these two. Then what?
Right. So
they look good. They smell good. They feel good.
If it's one that just hits the market and I feel like this one's going to go quick, then
we
go see it. I mean, we go see it that day or the next day. But if it's like ones that have been on the market a while, I'm like, drive by them, see if you like the neighborhood, because
there's usually a reason why it's still sitting.
And we can't say that's a terrible neighborhood. But
or their power lines, or give them material facts, but we can't say that's a bad neighborhood.
You're not going to trust me. You're not going to like this neighborhood, but I can say,
because we never know.
Go drive by. I mean,
there are neighborhoods I wouldn't live in, and then there are people that wouldn't want to live out near Pofftown where I live.
Right, absolutely.
It's so different for every client. You never know. I've walked into absolute trashed houses, and people are like, "Oh, God, I see the potential in my garden and and I'm like, this is why I keep my mouth shut, because their idea of a great house is not mine.
And the more you work with them, you know what their idea of.
But lots of times it's like the driveway. Like you pull up, they don't even want to get out of the car.
Yeah.
Because the driveway's too steep or the driveway's too this, and it could have been eliminated.
Or the yard is
Yes.
the yard is
yes.
this, or the yard
Eliminate.
it's up, whatever. They can, or they pull into the neighborhood and they don't, it's like all these little things. And so I think now that the market has slowed a little bit, we need to put back into that, go drive by it first.
Yeah. And
Before it was like, oh, I can be there at 11:30. Can you be there at 11:30? Like it was like a rush to get to the house. Now it's a little bit.
It's a little different, unless it's brand new to the market and it's a hot commodity.
Yeah.
Like if it's a good price, it looks amazing, and those are still going multiple offers, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So now we go into a property, they fall in love with it. What are we doing at the property? Checking it out.
Mm-hmm.
We're opening doors and cabinets and making sure hinges work and doors work. We're checking out what's going on around it. We are checking out maybe the systems, looking at trees, the backyard, walking the yard. A lot of agents don't wear shoes to walk the damn yard. Walk the yard. Put some shoes in your car where you can walk the yard. If you walk in that backyard and it's all spongy and they have some kind of drainage issue, and your clients have 3 dogs and they get into that house that hasn't had dogs before, and those dogs come in muddy every time and they have to spend $30,000 fixing that yard, they're going to want to have known that before they moved into that yard.
Right. Then a lot of
Walk the yard.
Those drainage issues are, if you just look.
If you just
Are
walk and you look,
noticeable.
septic
Mhm.
issues and drainage issues and gutter issues, basic things agents should know by walking around the house. If the downspouts are draining by the foundation, that's an issue. If the grading that bumps up to the house is leaning into the foundation, that's an issue. That's a grading issue. We need it pointing down and rolling away from the house. Those things we should be preparing the buyers. Looks like they may need to have some grading issues. You should know the basics, and the basics come from going out with these home inspectors. Mm-hmm. So go out with as many home inspectors for the whole thing, watch and listen and ask questions for many, many home inspections. Mm-hmm. How many times did I spend 3 hours at a home inspection or 4 hours? Yeah. I don't like to do that now. Need to. I can see that, look at the home inspection and go, oh, this, and this. And I understand what needs to happen, but a new agent needs to see those over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. That's the education part.
Yeah.
The education.
Foundation
it just comes
issues.
With experience, right?
Yeah. Foundation issues in the basement,
yes.
A lot of times are noticeable. Even termites.
You should be able to take a pencil or a pen, and if you are at the foundation, if you tap your pencil and it's crumbling, that's a termite issue, and they need to know. You don't want to create a mess for the seller, but you want to know. One time I went into a house in Clemens, and the home inspector tapped the interior wall of the basement, and all these termites go fluttering by. And he's like, yeah, got a termite issue. And I was like, I had no idea. The house was perfect, but it had a water drainage issue and termites, active termites. So, okay. So where are we now?
So they love the house. They want to make an offer.
We've looked at the house. We've done our own personal inspection, make sure it's the right house. And sometimes you only have 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Then what?
So this is when I go back over due diligence, earnest money, because they've already forgotten from the buyer consult which one's refundable, which one's not, when it's refundable, when it's not, what this means. That they've already forgotten it.
Yeah. So you've gone over it once at the buyer consult,
yes.
The documents.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're repeating the next steps and what the process looks like.
Right. Because I'm not going to write an offer and then say to me, oh, I thought due diligence money was refundable.
Got to go back over that.
Got to go back over it.
Nope, that money is gone. In North Carolina, that money is gone.
Yeah, the money's gone. So I go back over that so that when I'm writing this offer and I say, so, what do you want to, how much do you want to put for due diligence? They know that that's their money they're going to lose if they terminate for any reason, all reasons, no reason, whatever they're terminating for, they're going to lose that money. And it's a confusing thing. And I think we forget that it's confusing. But remember in real estate school when it was so confusing, like, okay, so now there's this due diligence period, but it doesn't really matter because you're losing that due diligence people think if they terminate in the due diligence period, they're getting the due diligence money back. That's their automatic reaction because that's what makes sense.
And ask them,
Really.
does this make sense?
Yeah.
You know, do you understand? Do you have any questions over and over? Because even though they've maybe bought 5 or 6 houses, it's different with every house, and we have updates every single time.
Right.
And so you're right. We forget that they don't buy houses and they're not closing 5 deals this month, so they don't remember. Or maybe we've forgotten something, we've missed a step, or if we're going over it constantly and saying, I'm going to prepare you for the next steps. Let's prepare for this is the next steps. If you're constantly saying that, you don't forget, and always ask them if they have any questions, because they don't know what they need to ask. They don't know what they don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So go over due diligence and earnest money again, so that when they submit this offer, they don't come back to you and say, oh, I thought due diligence money was the money I was getting back, not earnest. So go over that again. I also go over, what is a fixture. So they don't, so a lot of times if there's a refrigerator in there, they think the refrigerator stays. So, I tell them the stove, dishwasher, the attached microwave oven, that's what stays. The refrigerator does not. It's not a fixture.
In North Carolina, it's not.
Yeah. And it's different in every state. So what's funny is we have clients in Michigan, and in Michigan, nothing's a fixture. All the kitchen appliances leave with the house. So we had clients that moved there and bought a house up there, and they move in closing day, they go into the house, and there's no.
That was communication from their agent that their agent did not go over.
So they sent me the contract, and I went over the Michigan contract, and I'm like, no, that's correct, if they're not fixtures. But so in North Carolina, those things stay, not the refrigerator. Do you need a refrigerator? Do you want to bring your own refrigerator? Do you want to ask for this refrigerator?
Or the washer and dryer.
Yeah.
Or
so
in some cases, the microwave is, if it's just plugged in and sitting on the counter, it is not a fixture.
It's not, that's not a fixture. Also, look at the listing to say any fixture exceptions. So,
and look at agent only as well, because agent only will oftentimes have, sometimes it even has bonuses in there that we need to know about.
Yeah, or the refrigerator conveys. This house comes with the refrigerator. So do you want, this house is coming with the refrigerator, whether you like it or not, it conveys with the house. Some people don't want that. So just go over all that kind of stuff.
And we are not going over this, but in the listing agreement, we're not doing listings, but I want my seller to hear me speak every single one of these fixtures. And I say that, and I can read it so fast that I say, these are things that are fixtures that stay in the house unless I exclude them. And so the exclusions then need to transfer from the contract to the MLS, and you need to know what's on that MLS page, because some of the things have been excluded. But in order for them to truly be excluded, they have to be on the contract. And I learned this with a basketball goal. When you're excluded everywhere, excluded in the contract, excluded on MLS, excluded on the property disclosures, not taken off of, not included on the offer to purchase. So I bought a $500 basketball goal. Yeah. And I wasn't happy about it.
So that's what I do next. We go over due diligence, earned money, and we go over what's a fixture, anything they want to ask for.
And if you start adding too many things to the offer to purchase, the lender will kick it back. How many times have we done that, Ashley? Yeah, personal property. And at the beach, it's a little different. So if you're tuning in from the beach, it's a little different than
I'm not going to put on bar stools and all that because it is a lender issue. So I let them know.
So explain to them how you do that.
I just tell them that it's, you asking for this bar stools is not worth messing up the loan process.
You can make an outside contract with
we can
the
deal
buyer
with
and
it.
the seller.
We can do it after the fact, but it's not going on the contract. Because we've just seen it too many times where the lender kicks it back, and they do. But every time.
But you can also do it after due diligence. The buyer can purchase whatever they would like from the seller, or you could use it as a negotiating tool in due diligence for repairs. Like, okay, we won't ask for any repairs, but we'd like the bar stools, and in lieu of, we'd like the bar stools.
That's right. I do it on an addendum outside the contract.
Yeah,
outside the contract.
When I submit the offer. So it's signed off on and it's agreed upon.
Yeah, by the buyer and the seller, but since we're not lawyers, we don't write up any contracts. And
so then we write the offer.
Then what? The offer's written, everything is signed off on, then what?
We send it over to the list agent, and I always tell my client. So I overly communicate with my clients. I've just sent your offer to the list agent. I'll let you know when he confirms receipt. So
We call, text,
Yes.
email. I always text. Just sent you an offer. It's in
Yes.
your email. Please confirm. Just so you know they got it.
email and text. I
Yeah,
say,
email,
please confirm on the
text.
email, and then I send a text saying, please confirm. If I haven't heard from them within, I give them about an hour, then I call because I'm impatient, because my clients are impatient. So,
Be impatient. Being impatient is a good thing in our business.
and because I'm super busy and I know I can respond to anybody within an hour. So that,
And most agents will
Most
respond
agents do.
to a text.
yes,
Got it.
got it.
Got it.
Yep.
Conveying.
Yep. So, and then as soon as the list agent confirms receipt, I let my clients know the list agent has confirmed receipt of the offer. I will let you know when we hear back, because that they're sitting over there so impatient, right? They just want some kind of communication. So I
Right.
let them know when I've sent it. I let them know when the list agent has confirmed receipt, and then I let them know that I'll let them know as soon as I hear something.
Now, a list agent who is not responding, there's a good chance they have more offers.
Yeah.
Personally, they could have their own offer. Then we hammer them. If they're not responding to us, we call, text, email. If they haven't responded to me within 24 hours, I'm going to start hammering them, and I'm going to call around. I'm going to think they're dead, because I'm going to want to know why you haven't responded to the fact that I sent you an offer. I took the time to send you as a listing agent an offer. And as a listing agent, don't be a jackass, respond. Even if you have multiple offers, you don't release information as a list agent or as a buyer's agent, but it's common courtesy. And I never forget the people who lack common courtesy in a deal with me. Yeah,
Right.
I never forget who has been great to work with and who's been really hard or ugly to work with, because we want the same thing. We want to get a deal done, and either it will get done or it won't get done. And no one's to blame from an agent perspective unless they become part of the transaction. And a lot of agents that get real nasty, they're putting themselves and becoming part of the transaction. And that's not who we are. We're a conduit to get the deal done. We're a conduit to make our clients happy. We are a conduit to get everybody in the right spots to make the transaction a reality.
And I always feel like being super nice and friendly to other agents is just the way to go.
And okay, so if we wind up sending things, thank you, Alex, we're at 30 minutes. If we are sending a response or a counter, I don't put a lot of friendly stuff in there. The counter is $250 plus this, plus this, plus this. It's a very business. It's very specifically written out. Yes. I don't add a lot of fluff or smiley faces or hearts or anything. It is a very, very cut and dry.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like when I send the thing. Yes. I just sent you an offer. So can you please confirm receipt? Thanks so much. Yeah. Like things like that. I just
common courtesy.
Yeah. Like,
But with a counter.
No. When we're business, it's not thanks so much. It's not.
When we're countering back and forth, it's straight facts, so things don't get lost in the facts. And then once we go under contract, then what?
So then we're under contract. And so now we're going to talk about next steps.
Okay. But first, for our team, our process is we're going to swap the contract for the due diligence check. And why is that?
Because
we've been burned.
So many problems. I can't even go into the list of problems, but so going backwards a bit, part of that contract is when we're writing the offer is that I need you to have your due diligence documents, money checks ready right now.
Right now.
I'm not going to give that to them. But you need to be prepared as soon as our offer is accepted to drive to this office and hand me those checks as soon as it gets accepted. So that means if you run on your lunch break to come over here or do whatever, but we need those checks right away. Because we've done it before in our office. I had a listing that I was waiting for someone to bring the due diligence check. We verbally accepted the offer. We were waiting for the due diligence check. He was dragging his feet, and we got another cash offer for more in the meantime. and she brought a due diligence check 2 hours later, and I called them and said, sorry. So that could happen to our buyers.
And we have to do what the clients tell us to do. It's nothing personal.
Right.
We can't wait around for people, but we have every conceivable way for people to drop off a check here. We can even buzz you in the front door and you can put a check on the desk. And as soon as we have that check on the desk and we know it's here, we see you on camera, boom, you get that contract immediately ready.
Well, it's a disservice to your client to not prepare them to have the due diligence and an earnest money check right away.
And they can wire it
Because
too. We've wired it.
Yeah. So you're doing a disservice to them. That agent, that buyer's agent who drug his feet on getting the due diligence money, lost that deal.
Lost the deal. And
Because
who's going to be blamed? We're going to be blamed, but that agent's really going to be blamed for their.
His client was came in from Raleigh, so she was in Raleigh, and she didn't want to wire money, and she didn't have the time to drive the due diligence money check. Now, with out-of-town buyer clients, what do? I get the due diligence and earnest money checks for them before they go back out of town. So they know, so I have those checks. So if our offer gets accepted, then we have the due diligence and earnest money checks. I don't have to wait, they're out of town, and then if our offer doesn't get accepted, I literally video shredding their checks in the shredder.
Right. You can video, you can FaceTime them shredding their checks. But you can show them dropping it in.
A client
having the tools, though, we have a lot of tools that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
You have to have tools if you're going to do this business at your house, if you're going to run your business out of your house. You have to have those tools at your house and be ready to do the right things at every step.
Right.
Okay.
So under contract.
So we're under contract.
They are bringing me the due diligence and earnest money checks right now. I'm taking them to the list agent right away. And I always inform the list agent. I'm getting the due diligence check by noon. I should have it at your office by 2. So he knows that whoever the list agent knows that we're serious, because that's also part of wanting to do business with somebody. That's representing your client well. So they're under contract. Now the process we're going to talk about inspections.
Okay. We're going to prep them as soon as we go under contract. Next steps. Here are the next steps. Next steps are what?
Now we're officially in due diligence. We're going to do
congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yay. Congratulations. Now the hard work begins.
And I always call my clients to let them know their offer has been accepted.
Right.
That's a phone call.
That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Congratulations. We are under contract officially.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it hasn't been switched in the MLS. I have the contract. They have your check. We're under contract, right?
Yeah. So now we start talking about inspections.
What kind of inspections would you like? Here are the options. You have everything from a roof inspection, a home inspection, a pest inspection. You can inspect the gutters. You can inspect every single thing, but that costs money. Septic well, radon, HVAC. They can inspect the pool, the hot tub. There are a lot of inspections. And there's a list. What's the list called? Professional services.
Oh, yeah. The professional service doesn't have everything. I mean, it does, but
we can add stuff. And people oftentimes overlook a survey. A survey, especially if they want to put in a fence or they're wondering where their fence line is or their yard line. It's worth the money, and buyers need to be prepped that it could be thousands of dollars in inspections depending on what they want to do. Now the sellers now are paying for that. Frequently we can ask for closing costs, and we can even roll up the cost of the house to do that.
They have a fence doesn't mean it's on their property.
And just because they have a fence doesn't mean it's on their property or a shed.
right.
Okay.
So we go over that, and then as we've learned this week, one of the things we need to stress now again to the buyers is that homes are sold as is.
As is. In North Carolina, as is.
These inspections are just for your information. They're just for you to know what exactly is going on with this house. And at that point, if there's something going on that you are not comfortable with, we can ask the seller to fix it. The seller doesn't have to fix it, but then that's your right to terminate. They don't
not replace.
Fix, not replace.
Or we can ask them to replace it. You can ask whatever you want, and they can say whatever they want. They can do some of it, none of it, all of it. They can give cash back. They can give no cash back. The buyers even can say, okay, we need this fixed. bank, can we raise the price of our house $5,000 so we can take $5,000 and whatever, and then add closing costs? So there are some ways around it. You just have to think through some processes, and you can think through that with your lender as well.
Yeah. And as long as you let the clients know upfront that the inspection is for their information purposes only. And if there's things that are concerning to them when the inspection's over, that's when we talk about asking for repairs, asking for a credit, asking for something, and they don't have to do it. And that's what we have to stress to them, that they don't have to do anything. And that's when they have the right to terminate in that due diligence.
And frequently buyers will think that the seller knows that there's water in the crawl space. I have never been in my crawl space. I'm not going to crawl in anybody's crawl space. That's a hard no for me. But in my basement, and I walk downstairs and I have a flood in my basement, I know I have a flood in my basement. But people don't always know there's a leak, or that there is a roof leak, or a vent boot needs changing. Sometimes people think that a leak on a vent boot is going to be some huge expense. It's like $300, $250. What is it at right now? I don't even know. $250 for a vent boot. Or that a shattered window pane, it may be $250, $300 to replace that. So you need to have a general concept of what these things actually cost. And a good home inspector will be able to kind of give you a range, I would think.
And if there's anything major that's going on,
structural.
Yes.
We call it a structural inspection.
That's when you call out whatever service person you need to give an estimate for repairs. If it's something major.
And a good vendor list is important.
So that
constantly updated.
If we send over the due diligence request, we're not just like, oh, the subfloor is rotted underneath the bathroom, we want $5,000. Which some buyer's agents do. I as a list agent, I want a quote. I want to see where you came up with this number. It makes your due diligence request look stronger. Like, here's what's wrong. Here's the inspection report. Here's what's wrong. Here we sent this expert out. Here's what they're saying it's going to take to fix it.
Okay, so we've written up the due diligence repair request. The seller says, I'll repair this toilet and do repair the leak in the kitchen, but I'm not going to do anything else. Or they say, I'll give you $1,500 to do any and all repairs, and that goes in lieu of a repair request, and where the due diligence should say, in lieu of any and all repairs, seller to credit $1,500. So you put it on two documents in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, and agree to amend.
Okay, then we say, okay, congratulations, we got this $1,500. It's all signed off on. Where does that paperwork go? To the attorney's office. Just the agreement to amend. We never send over to lenders or to the attorney. Never send the home inspection. Never send the home inspection. That's for the buyer only.
Request.
Never send the due diligence request to the attorney or the lender. Those stay in-house. Those are for your information. The only things we send over are absolute must-haves for the contract to the attorney.
They agree to amend.
Yeah.
So
sometimes they'll ask for it, and we say we don't send those.
What?
The home inspection.
Yeah, or the due diligence request.
Or due diligence. We never send them.
I've never had a lender ask.
Well, they ask for we don't send property
disclosures
disclosures either. We don't send property disclosures either.
Because, well, they rarely ask for them. It's usually a newer underwriter, one in particular that we don't love working with.
So the major mistake that could be made there is sending the due diligence request to the lender.
Yeah. Because then they have to have every single thing done instead of just what's been agreed upon. Because sometimes they're dealing with contracts in other states where everything has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, next steps. We have that under contract. We've sent the agreement to amend to the closing attorney and to the lender, right? Just that agreement to amend with the $1,500.
Yes.
Okay, next steps after that.
So now we're kind of coasting. Well, on the buyer's end, and this starts from the beginning, anything they ask for the lender, send to them. If you've already sent it, send it again.
What's another reminder? Don't take out any credit. Don't buy a car. Don't buy the furniture. Hold off
Don't put
until.
no cash in the bank.
Don't
Yeah.
touch the cash. Talk to your lender before you do anything big.
Mhm.
Don't pay anything off that the lender doesn't tell you to pay off. Right?
Right.
Like it's all these things. The process needs to be protected.
Order the appraisal ASAP.
Yeah. Well, the lender orders, if it's a cash deal, we may have to order the appraisal, right? If it's a
Yeah.
cash deal and they want an appraisal, we order the appraisal, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got all of that done. Everything's coasting. The seller side, then once we get past due diligence, the sellers have to send over their documentation for payoff, and you attack those things. Then what else do we have on our list?
So at that point for the buyers, then I start going over, so we're going to get the final closing disclosure a few days ahead of time. That will tell you the amount you need to bring to closing. Be prepared to have that wire, or do you want, and then I asked, do you want it wire? Are you going to wire it? Or are you going to bring an official bank check? If you're wiring, then you have them call the attorney's office directly to set up that wiring.
We never touch wiring instructions ever, 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 ever. We don't touch bank accounts, wiring instructions, anything like that. That's between the attorney and the buyer. And also, we need to make sure they've started the process of packing and moving. What if they're closing the same day?
Yeah.
If they're closing the same day, we're on a really tight control timeline and we need to control it. So I don't like closing on a Friday. Hate Friday closings. I like Wednesdays or Thursdays for closings, but never a Friday. Why don't we like Fridays?
Well, because if it gets delayed, then there's a whole weekend that people's stuff
Are
is on
pissed.
a truck or.
And they're mad.
Yeah.
And their cat's sleeping in my back storage room. So that is why we don't have closings on Fridays if we can avoid them, because it's easier to roll one day, but then they roll 1, 2, 3 days to Monday. Oh, they're mad. They're mad when they plan to be in their bed and they're exhausted. So don't forget that clients are exhausted. Make sure they've changed over what? Utilities and their bank accounts and anything they have to do. We forget that. And you need to text it to them. They're busy. They're scared. They're nervous. What if they're making the wrong decision? Those things are going through their head. We have to be the confidence in it. We have to say, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. The hard work is when you start unpacking and trying to figure out where to put all this stuff. That's the really hard time. So right now we're on, everything's good. It's under control. I will let you know when there's something to worry about. I've told people this a lot because they're like, what if, you'll have the what ifers, the what if they don't do this? What if they don't get out of the house? What if? We're not going to borrow trouble. I'm going to tell you, and I will tell you if I think something's going sideways. If I think something's going sideways, I will let you know. But if it's not, we're not going to borrow trouble. We're not going to worry about things we can't control, right? What else?
So then I go over, what they need for closing. A lot of people think they're going to show up with a personal check for closing, and that's not.
What do they need?
The money needs to be wired, or they need an official bank check.
And they need a driver's license.
They need a valid driver's license.
They have to prove who they are.
It's expired. It won't be taken. And then if it's a kind of thing where the husband is on the loan, but the wife is not, I need to make sure they know the wife still needs to be at closing.
Right.
So, because in North Carolina, she's still responsible and there's still paperwork that she has to sign. So, and then, then we just kind of.
And then what happens? Then it's close day. So what happens on closing day? What do we do on the day of closing?
I always text my clients first thing in the morning and say, happy closing day. See you at 11.
See you at 11
Don't forget,
go do the walkthrough.
Yeah, we do our walkthrough. Don't forget license.
To remind them.
Bank check. Just remind them of everything they need to bring.
Do you need a Red Bull? I always offer a Red Bull or a bottle of water or energy drinks because coffee.
When I set up the walkthrough, I also tell them, okay, closing's at 11:30, walkthrough's at 11. Walkthrough takes 10 minutes. We just walk through.
We make sure the refrigerator's there, the washer and dryer are there if they're part of the contract. We make sure there's not a toilet in the kitchen, which I've had that happen at walkthrough. We make sure the house isn't leaking, nothing's falling apart, that they didn't leave a bunch of crap in the house.
They didn't tear apart the house.
They didn't tear it. They didn't ruin the carpet. I've seen that. What else have we seen at walkthroughs? And these lazy agents that don't do the walkthrough, they do it like when it's convenient for them. That's lazy. We do it right before we close, so we know what's going on with the house and that we are covered, and we want the client there, so the responsibility is on them. Oh, well, you were at the walkthrough, right? Yeah. I'm still mad. I found this. Well, you were at the walkthrough. There was stuff in the refrigerator. The refrigerator smelled. I can't control how that refrigerator smells. I would never want to use refrigerator or a used washer and dryer. That's just me. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. But if they need a housekeeper, that needs to be scheduled immediately after closing, like 2 hours after closing, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to record. That's when, and sometimes money has to transfer. So if they're scheduling their movers at 12 o'clock, as soon as they leave the attorney's office, that ain't happening unless it's a cash deal, right?
Right. Well, yeah, and that's something to bring up to them along the way too, that you don't get the keys until it records, which could be a few hours after.
Yeah, or have the moving company come the next day so they can get in there and clean. They may have to stay in a hotel. Say that to them. Well, I'm sorry, you may have to stay in a hotel.
Especially if it's a late afternoon closing.
Yeah. What's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, not everything's at the attorney. There's a change that has to happen. That's worst case scenario, that you have to stay in a hotel, that we have to push the movers off till the next morning. So that's worst case scenario. We don't overly stress it, but we tell them what the worst case and the best case is. Best case is they get it done and everything's in place. And if we're constantly in check motion, we check on the attorneys, we check on the lenders. Is everything done? Is everything ready to go? Then we've over prepared for the closing and we're ready to go. Over preparing is better than under repairing and looking like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to look like a fool. Unless
No.
I'm drinking too
Yeah,
much.
know what the
and I don't
contract
care.
says as far as how the house is supposed to be left, because non-listing agents prep their sellers to leave it broom swept.
Broom
Yeah.
swept. The house needs to be broom swept. But sometimes they'll leave. The
Yeah.
listing agent won't even know. You know, we've had listings where we've told them, and you know, we're trying to find people to clean out a house at the last minute. One time I had another agent that a very big Lexington, I guess, area agent whose client left the house trashed, and our client was mad. I charged him $450. I said, Venmo me and I'll have it cleaned out for our client. So he Venmoed me $450 and we had it cleaned out for the client.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't going to pay for that. I'll delay closing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just make sure as a new agent that you do need to, if you walk into a house and it's dirty, you do need to reach out to that agent.
Immediately.
Like, don't feel like, oh my gosh, whatever. Like, no, like that is
Reach
your
out
job.
immediately.
Yes.
Yes, that's your
Try to
job, is
get
to
it
protect your
rectified.
client. The other agent doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I was mad that day. It cost me a whole day of stress dealing with a house that wasn't moved out. And the clients actually were still moving out that day. And as a listing agent, prepare your clients. They need to be out before the close day. That's the remedy of the earnest money and the due diligence money, is to get your stuff out of the house before the day of closing. This is North Carolina, so they have to be out. Then what? So they've closed it. They have the keys now. They're moving in. Then what?
So then a lot of people think that they're done, right? You've closed them or whatever, and now it becomes the
Relationship.
now it turns into a relationship, and they turn back into a long-term nurture client. They turn back into our reaching out to them.
We need to care about
All the
them
time.
after the fact. They've closed their house. Check in on them. Put that on your list. As soon as they close, we check in on them. Check in on them that night, and we check in on them that next week, and we check in on them a week later, 2 weeks after that. Just check in on them to make sure everything's okay, because something will happen. Something will go wrong. And now we're back to putting home warranties on all of our clients' contracts $750 so that our clients are covered with a home warranty if they need it, right? So put home warranties on everything if you can get away with it, if it's not multiple offers, or have them put a home warranty on used houses. Let's say they buy new construction. Let's say they're buying new construction. When do we do a blue tape with a contractor? 3 to 4 days before we close it. So blue tape needs to happen. So there's different things that happen for different closings, and you just need to prepare for all the steps. And blue tapes, if it's 3 to 4 days, sometimes they do it a week. Really good ones that are routine and organized, they'll do it a week out and get the paint touched up and the nail pops and make sure everything is running right. But always get a home inspection on new construction. Always. Because we have had contractors over the past 2 years that have not connected the HVAC correctly because they hired yahoos and crappy people. It's a true story. And not Yahoo is kind word, probably criminals. So make sure that you do a home inspection on everything on new construction as well. Anything else you can think of, Nikki?
Just that after it closes, they, like I said, turn back into a long-term nurture.
They need to be in your database.
They need to be, so like I send out texts for, Happy New Year. So a lot of people think you send out Happy New Year text to the clients you're working with. Well, they automatically shift from an active client back to my list of long-term nurturers as soon as they close. So they're on that list of people to reach out to all the time.
Yeah, check in on them. How's it going? I drove by your house the other day. Sorry I haven't been in touch, but I just drove by your house. I love you. I miss you. And as soon as you have a client, they go in your phone along with their email and their cell phone and anybody else that's party to the transaction, so that if you're sitting in South Carolina, you can pull up that contract and, punch stuff in on your phone and zip it over to people. So their phone number and their email is always in here. I can't even tell you how many clients I have in my phone. It's probably 30,000 people in my cell phone, probably 20. And just my cell phone.
Yeah. And I put a lot of times their ad, like their house, like
who they are, their house.
If it's so I remember, because a lot of times I'm like, who is this person? Or, or if it's anybody, if it's like someone's name and they're a structural engineer, I put structural engineer next to the name. I put this.
So you can whip it over to people. Whip it over. Here's a structural engineer. And put as much back on the client as you can. Here are 3 structural engineers you can call. You need to look them up and see what you think. And then, I don't mind making a call to get it scheduled for you, but that's on you. You pay for the inspections. You pay for this. Get them to pay for it immediately. We don't want that bill coming here. Karin Realty is not going to pay that bill. Karin Realty is not paying a home inspection bill. Lauren's paying it if it doesn't get paid. Somebody else.
Paying it.
I'm not paying it.
That's the thing, is that the contractors want to come after you because you scheduled the appointment, but the contract is not between you and the contractor. It's between the clients.
But that's where you connect the contractor with the buyer. Joe Smith, meet Don Smith, meet Amy Smith. These are your clients. That way that connection is made, especially everybody's using text messaging. Anything else we can think of? Any questions? Any thought processes? You make any notes, Ashley, for us to go over? No. Good. All right, Lauren. That concludes our process management. You should obviously know and understand how to explain all the contracts, every single one. And they are dumbed down to the point where everyone should be able to read it and explain it. And if you go over it again and again and again and again, you can explain it quickly and you can answer questions and you don't look foolish. The people that look foolish don't understand what's happened on the contracts. And I'll sit here and read it. If I haven't looked at a contract in a while, I'll say, let me just read this for a minute before we sign it. And then I'll explain it as we go along. But make sure they have a copy and we have a copy so you can explain it. All right. Well, that concludes today's episode of the buyer process. If you have any questions, you can reach out. But otherwise, know your game. And if you're prepared, you don't have to get prepared. All right. Have a great day.